In our increasingly electrified society, that's where a resilient grid matters most. ITC Great Plains is ensuring the greater grid can meet our energy needs now and long into the future. Learn more at itc-holdings.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kansas State Fair in Hutchinson and People's Bank and Trust Arena. And it is our pleasure to bring you a Kansas gubernatorial debate. My name is Greg Akagiak, director with WIBW Radio and the Kansas Radio Networks, and I will serve as the moderator for today's debate for Kansas Governor. We also would like to welcome all those watching on Smoky Hills PBS. Now, before I introduce the candidates, I want to introduce the folks who will be asking the questions. That, of course, is our media panel. And that would include Nick Gosnell, who is the news director with Hutch Post and Eagle Radio in Hutchinson. We also have Alex Flippin, investigative reporter and managing anchor with KWCH-TV in Wichita, and Jennifer Latsky, editor of Kansas Farmer Magazine in Dodge City. And today's timekeeper is our newest member of the Farm Department with the Kansas Agriculture Network and WIBW Radio, Slade Wiley. Today's debate will have two candidates. They will each have 2 minutes for an opening and closing statement. The candidate that first answers the question from the media panel will have 1.5 minutes to respond. The other candidate will then have 1.5 minutes to respond. And then the candidate who answers first will then have 45 seconds for rebuttal. So let me introduce the candidates. And a note to all, I had asked the campaigns to send me a short introduction of their candidate. These introductions were not written by the moderator or anyone associated with the Kansas radio networks. On January 14, 2019, Laura Kelly became the 48th governor of the state of Kansas. Governor Kelly has brought Democrats and Republicans together to get things done for Kansas. She's brought new jobs, businesses, opportunities, and record economic success to the state. The governor also balanced the budget, fully funded schools, and continues to fight for tax cuts for every Kansan. She puts what's best for Kansas ahead of party politics. Would you please welcome Education Governor Laura Kelly. And our other candidate, is a strong supporter of personal responsibility, individual freedoms, and the Constitution. Derek Schmidt has served as Kansas Attorney General since 2011. Before that, he served as a Kansas State Senator, including as chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee. Derek will be a governor who fights to make life more affordable to hardworking Kansas families, to grow jobs and paychecks and not the government. And also to make sure parents have a voice in their kids' education. Derek is running for governor because Kansans deserve better leadership. And he's asking for your vote on November 8th. Would you please welcome Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt. Okay, one note though to our audience here at the People's Bank and Trust Arena, and you can be as loud as you want, but please be courteous in responding to each of the candidates, and please refrain from responding until they have completed their statements. Remember, that you are seeing the candidates in person. We have an audience that's listening to this debate on the radio, television, and online. Please respect that they may be undecided in who they will cast their vote for on Tuesday, November 8th, and they are wanting to hear from each of the candidates who are on stage here at the Kansas State Fair. All right, let's get to the opening statements, and as agreed to previously backstage, we have determined the order of the opening and closing statements. So our first opening statement will come from the Republican candidate for governor, Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt.
A young Civil War veteran years ago settled in Kansas, and years later a working family from Indiana came to the southeast Kansas mines, and later still a German-speaking family left Russia for Harrington to find opportunity with the railroad. Every Kansan has a story. This is how generations of my family came here seeking opportunity. My wife Jennifer and I are proudly raising our 2 daughters as the 6th generation to call Kansas home. I'm running for governor because I want to leave Kansas a better place than I found it, for my kids and for yours. Governor Kelly is wrong in her philosophy that the solution to every problem is to spend more of your money to buy you a bigger government. Over the past 4 years, Kansas is spending a staggering $6 billion more of your money. And what do we have to show for it? 18,000 fewer Kansans working here than 4 years ago, daily life less affordable, so many families falling further behind every month as big government inflation takes more and more of their wages. Despite record investment in our public schools, our kids' academic achievement has declined after Governor Kelly locked them out of their classrooms. And she's proud of that. Public schools enrollment is down, parents are frustrated, and good teachers are fleeing the profession. So many Kansans tell me they are anxious about our future, our freedoms, and many common sense values we thought we all shared. Many worry a creeping big government socialism is replacing the opportunity and self-sufficiency that motivated and empowered so many Kansas stories in years past. Governor Kelly is happy about her record because she's focused on Kansas government. But I'm critical of the past 4 years because I'm focused on you and your family and your children. Kansas needs a new governor who will fight every day to make your life more affordable, fight for our kids and their future, fight to keep Kansas communities safe and secure, respect personal freedoms, and stand up against the Biden administration. I have and I will. She hasn't and she won't. Kansas can do better.
General Schmidt, thank you very much. The final opening statement will come from the Democratic candidate for governor, Governor Laura Kelly.
Taking my time. So first of all, Greg, thank you very much for the invitation. I want to thank the media panel, Nick and Jennifer and Alex, and everybody at the State Fair who put things together, and all of you who have come out today, and those of you who are listening at home. I am truly honored to be here. You know, I ran for governor 4 years ago because I wanted to get our state back on track. After the prior administration had really decimated our state. So now, even with all of the challenges that we have faced as a country in these past few years, we here in Kansas are back on track. By working together with Democrats and Republicans, we've balanced our budget every year. We fully funded our public schools. We closed the bank of KDOT. And we've recruited some of the largest employers in the country to come to Kansas. And we have cut taxes for those who need it. $1 billion in tax cuts, including the food sales tax elimination. We've cut property taxes. We've cut taxes for farmers and ranchers. We've cut taxes for seniors and disabled veterans and for our teachers. I am proud of that record, but maybe most of all, what I am most proud of is that we have restored a sense of civility to our politics. A spirit of working together, meeting in the middle to get things done. We have come a long way, and we simply cannot afford to turn back now. Derek Schmidt supported the agenda that drove us into the ditch in the first place. We cannot go back. We must stay on track. We must keep moving forward.
All right. Governor Kelly, thank you very much. We now will go to the questions from the media panel. And as previously agreed to backstage, General Schmidt will be asked the first question, and that will come from Nick Gosnell, news director of the Hutch Post and Eagle Radio in Hutchinson.
Good morning, Attorney General, Governor. Attorney General Schmidt, child care is one of the issues that everybody figured out long before COVID, but the COVID situation exacerbated the need that we already knew we had for child care in the state of Kansas. How can Kansas state government help make sure that the smallest Kansans are taken care of and their moms and dads can go to work?
One of the reasons that so many fewer Kansans are working is that after they were locked out of their jobs and their kids were locked out of their schools, they discovered that 80 child care facilities in this state had closed. They were no longer there. And so working parents have to have the opportunity to have access to good and quality child care all over this state. As I talk with Kansans around the state and ask them about what is the principal impediment to further providing good child care, the answer that always comes to mind is the burdensome regulation that is piled on time and again and prevents good and quality child care in so many parts of our state from filling the needs of working families. We are 4 years into this administration, and they have done nothing to relieve the regulatory burden on child care providers in this state. Things are worse than they were when they took office. We can do better.
Governor Kelly, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you very much. Well, Nick, I appreciate that question because there's nothing more near and dear to my heart than the early childhood education system here in the state of Kansas. You know, I was the first person to actually get state general fund monies into our budget to provide for early childhood grants, block grants that went to all of our communities to be able to provide for our kids. And since I have become governor, I have placed a serious focus on early childhood education and on child care. In fact, we have brought in some of the very best and brightest and installed them at our Children's Cabinet, which is the lead agency for overseeing what we do for our young people here in the state of Kansas. And I have every intention, as we go forward into my second term, to elevate the issue of child care and early childhood education by creating a cabinet-level position to focus on those issues. Now, there's no doubt that during the pandemic, we did have a whole lot of child care issues. It's true. There were a number of child care facilities that closed down. They had to. There were congregate facilities. It was not safe to have kids there. We also needed to shift our attention to our hospitals. So trust that there's nothing I will focus on more. I hope to leave it as my legacy that we have the best, most comprehensive early childhood education system in this country, in the state of Kansas.
General Schmidt. General, you have 45 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, the governor didn't mention the child care tax credits that Republicans passed this year in order to incent more businesses to step up to the plate and provide quality care for their employees. Instead, she went straight to where she often does. Look how much money they've spent. They expanded grants. She's going to create a new cabinet-level secretary, more bureaucracy. The impediment that I hear from child care providers is that there is too much red tape already.
All right, the next question will be by Alex Flippin with KWCH-TV in Wichita, and it will be first addressed to Governor Kelly.
Good morning. Governor Kelly, Attorney General Schmidt has criticized your handling of the foster care system recently here in Kansas. So my question is, what can you do to ensure that the failures of this system, for instance, foster children dying while still under the care of DCF, children sleeping in offices, how do we fix that going forward?
Well, many folks know that I was actually on the Child Welfare Task Force that we put together when I was in the state Senate to directly address the horrendous number of issues that were occurring in our foster care system. We had nearly 8,000 kids in our foster care system in 2018. We had no way to keep those families together, to keep those kids out of. That agency had been totally decimated, that there were no family preservation workers there to help those families stay together. So they got stuck in the foster care system. Then on the other end, there were no reintegration specialists to be able to get them back within their biological family or to get them into an adoptive family. We have changed all of that. You know, we have really resourced. We are the first state in the country to take advantage of the Family First Preservation Grant that gave us the resources to be able to provide the prevention services necessary to keep kids from going in the system in the very first place. And then we have done a lot of work to make sure that we're increasing the number of adoptions or the number of families that are coming back together. We now have 1,000 fewer kids in our foster care system than we did when I took office. That's a good thing.
General Schmidt, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, I have worked with abused children throughout my career. I have sat with families who have seen terrible things done to their children, and we have prosecuted offenders who have committed terrible, terrible crimes against kids. So my dedication on this issue is second to none. Here's the fact of the matter. We all wish every child could stay with their loving parents and have loving parents and live and grow up in that manner, but the truth is it's not always possible. Here's what the state of Kansas must guarantee. That when a child must be removed from the home because of the terrible circumstances there, that child will be safer and better off in state custody than they were in the circumstance they're removed from. Here we are 4 years later, after the governor called this a moral obligation to fix this system, a statement with which I agree. And there are still children sleeping in providers' offices, by some accounts, more than there were before. There are still kids lost in the system. By a federal audit, we rank near the bottom of all states in terms of the number of kids. They just don't know where they are. There are still kids dying in custody. What do we do about it? Here's one thing we ought to do. There was a bipartisan agreement different ideas on how, but a bipartisan agreement that Kansas needs a new and effective office of the child advocate to stand up for these kids every day. Republicans had one idea, Democrats had a different idea, and rather than working together and be bipartisan, the governor scrapped them both, stepped up, created an ineffective office. We will fix that in our administration.
Governor Kelly, you have 45 seconds for rebuttal.
Thank you. I actually spent my early career working in the child welfare system, so I have direct personal knowledge about how the systems work, and they're difficult systems. It is a difficult process, and that is why I'm very proud of the work that Department of Children and Families has done over the 4 years that we have been in office to make significant improvements and become now a model for other states looking to improve their child welfare systems. You know, Kansas once was a leader in that field. We are moving back into that position.
The next question, and this is where agriculture comes into play now, so the next question, which will be addressed to General Schmidt first, will come from Jennifer Latsky, editor of Kansas Farmer Magazine in Dodge City.
Good morning, and welcome to the Kansas State Fair, Governor and Attorney General. It is our state's largest agricultural classroom and a place near and dear to my heart as an agricultural journalist. Attorney General, I live in western Kansas. I live on the Ogallala Aquifer, and I see just how our state's ground and surface water resources are critical to our agribusiness prosperity and thus our state's prosperity. So how would you use the office of governor to work with the agriculture and municipalities and other stakeholders in the state to conserve our water resources for the good of all Kansans today and tomorrow?
Well, I have worked around agriculture all of my life. Growing up as a kid, I remember back in the old days using a homemade hay hook to buck square bales into the back of a pickup truck. I had the privilege of serving as chairman of our State Senate Agriculture Committee, and as Attorney General, I have stood up time and time and time again to federal overreach that threatens our farmers and ranchers, including our water, like the Waters of the U.S. rule that we stop once and we will stand up and stop again. You are absolutely correct that the future of our water resource is intimately tied to the future of our state. There is perhaps no more important issue we must deal with. The truth of the matter is we will manage the resource, or eventually it will manage us. Those are the only options. On this stage 4 years ago, the candidates for governor agreed that Kansas was largely moving in the right direction with gubernatorial leadership that put that choice front and center time and again, brought together local interests, including agricultural interests, municipal interests, other users, and said we are going to stay on this discussion until we figure out what works in Dodge City, in Garden City, over the Equus beds, whatever it may be. I think what's been lacking these last 4 years is a commitment to that type of gubernatorial leadership that convenes the parties locally and says, stay on task until we figure it out.
Governor Kelly, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, I want to recognize that agriculture and agriculture's need for water, the driving economic force in our state. We have had, over a long period of time, a real lack of investment in our agricultural industry and water issues. You know, it is one of the reasons that immediately upon taking office, I created the Office of Rural Prosperity so that we could focus like a laser on our issues impacting our rural communities, and certainly water is one, but there are so very many others. You know, I actually have brought stakeholders in the agriculture industry together to address all sorts of needs, water being one of them, workforce being another, housing being another, immigration being another. You know, I am the only Democrat governor in the country who actually signed on to support the United States-Canada-Mexico agreement, so that our farmers. It was the right thing for Kansas. I also, specifically related to water, I'm the first governor to fully fund our water plan in the last 15 years. And I've created an infrastructure czar using somebody who's already on the payroll, so we're not expanding government. But Julie Lorenz, our Secretary of Transportation, is our infrastructure czar, and she is overseeing, working with stakeholders from all over the state on how to deal with the funding that will be coming in through the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed that will allow us to further invest in water issues, you know, whether it's quantity, quality, wastewater treatment. We will be moving forward very aggressively on that.
General Schmidt. General Schmidt, you have 45 seconds for rebuttal.
I am the only candidate in this race endorsed by the Kansas Farm Bureau and the Kansas Livestock Association, the people who live on the land, who love the land, who make their living from the land, and who know that I am the leader we need on long-term issues in rural America, including our water management. I am the only candidate in this race who has stood up when the Biden administration has threatened to squash Kansas agriculture with things like the Waters of the U.S. rule, the Waters of the U.S. rule that threatened to put so many farmers off the land, or the Green New Deal that President Biden's attempted to implement by regulation. I have stood up, I have stopped them. Nobody else on this stage has tried.
All right, let's get back to the questions. The next question will come from Nick Gosnell, and this will be addressed first to Governor Kelly.
Governor Kelly, funding Kansas schools has been a priority of yours as governor. However, there are those who would argue that fully funding Kansas schools has not yet happened, and those would be special education parents. I know because I am one. There was a back and forth in the legislature towards the end of the last legislative session over the percentage of excess cost that should go to special education. Current statute says 92% of excess cost. Even if you can't get to that number, can you get to a number you agree on? It seems like we're leaking. Bueller USD 313 here in Reno County gave me some numbers as they got ready to do their budget this year. They said that the excess cost number is in the 70s this year, and if things don't change, it'll be in the 60s next year. How do you respond to that?
Okay. Well, thank you, Nick. You know, I have said, and I will continue to say, that we are fully funding our schools, but I recognize that special education has not been funded to the 92% level, which is what we said we would do. I do want to make it clear, though, if we look back in history, that special education is really an unfunded mandate from the federal government. They are really supposed to be sending this money in, so we've been picking up the slack. And yes, have we picked it up all the way? No, we have not. But I did propose inserting $30 million into the special education fund last year. It was defeated by my opponent's party. So I will continue to work towards that. I will always work to fully fund our schools and keep us out of court so we can focus on the important things that we need to be doing in schools. You know, we need to be partnering with our community mental health centers so that we can have mental health providers on site 24/7, 365. We need to make sure that we continue doing things like learning loss grants that provide parents an opportunity to work with their kids, get tutors, after-school programming, whatever it is, to make up for some of the learning loss that occurred during that. And then, again, we need to expand our early childhood system, working with our business sector and our local communities. And I've got to say, you know, Derek Schmidt stood by Brownback's tax cuts to our schools when they went to 4-day work weeks. And he even went to court to keep those cuts in place.
General Schmidt, General, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Kansas public schools are fully constitutionally funded, according to the Kansas Supreme Court, because Republicans and Democrats worked together over years, and because I went to the Kansas court and defended their work product successfully. We got the job done. Now, special education is unbelievably important, and my commitment to it is as solid as anybody's. I agree with the idea that the problem is that the federal government has imposed a mandate they have never paid for it. And on that, that's not a Republican or a Democrat issue. It's a conversation for our members of Congress. But my friends, the answer is not for Kansas taxpayers to step up and pay even more to make up for the federal government's failings. As I pointed out in my opening, on Governor Kelly's watch, this state is spending $6 billion per year more than it did the year she took office. Our taxpayers cannot bear more. And on the subject of schools, I ask you this: fully funding schools can only work if you don't lock the kids out of them after they're fully funded. First, my opponent locked our kids out of school, then she tried to lock our parents out of school by vetoing the Parents' Bill of Rights. The damage done by this governor to our kids exceeds the damage done by any previous governor in the history of this state.
Governor Kelly, you have 45 seconds for a rebuttal.
Derek, I will never apologize for protecting the lives of our children. And you look at where we are now. You know, the kids are back in school. Our economy is thriving. Our unemployment rate is the lowest it's ever been. Kansas is in good shape. We are in much better shape than we were before the pandemic.
All right, our next question will come from Alex Flippin with KWCH-TV, and this will be first addressed to Attorney General Schmidt.
I was told this was a raucous debate. I really didn't have any idea. All right, so as long as we're on the subject of schools, and forgive me, this is top of mind because I've been doing a lot of reporting on this just in the last couple of weeks, but just in the first 2 weeks of school this year, 5 guns were taken from students at Wichita Public Schools, just in the first 2 weeks of class. So my question is, what do we do in the governor's office to keep guns out of schools and to keep our schools safe?
Alex, you know, we had a terrible situation in Olathe last school year, where a brave school resource officer prevented an even worse tragedy when a kid who was armed did things they shouldn't have done. I stepped up and offered a school safety proposal soon after that. I recommended that we invest in additional school safety grants, a proposal that Republicans in the legislature came up with. Didn't even make it into the governor's budget for, I think, 2 or 3 years, but she finally got there. We ought to expand that program. We ought to make sure we expand our commitment to school resource officers and support them and support the good work they do, and not be afraid to say that a safety officer in a school is one of the best guarantees we have for the safety of our kids. And we've also, on my watch, worked with the Department of Education to create the School Safety Hotline, and we've continued to partner so that folks can give tips quickly when they think something may be amiss. We've proposed investing more in mental health intervention teams, another good Republican idea that we need to expand more around the state in partnership between mental health professionals in communities and our school leaders. But what we should not do is turn this into an excuse to take guns from law-abiding Americans in Kansas. I'm a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. My opponent has very different views.
Governor Kelly, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. I have very great respect for our school resource officers. Worked closely with them when my kids were at Topeka High. But that's not the only answer. We know that. We know when we look at something like happened in Uvalde that we have to come up with other answers. I would agree that we need to ensure that we have mental health services, and I've been pushing for this for years, that we have mental health services in our schools so that they can identify those kids who are at risk. And help them. But I think I have been a strong supporter of the Second Amendment all of my political career. But I think I stand with the vast majority of Kansans and Americans who believe that it is time for common sense gun policy. And I am not talking about taking guns away from people. What I'm talking about is background checks, red flag laws, ensuring that guns are locked up and kept away from children in their homes. Those are the kinds of things. And I think every responsible gun owner would agree with me.
General Schmidt, you have 45 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, responsible gun owners do agree that they need to be responsible with their firearms, but they do not agree that it's the role of the government to tell them how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, and to punish them if they do not do it. The Second Amendment is not a suggestion. It is a constitutionally protected right. And so my opponent's big government solutions to every problem just don't work here. Instead, we have to focus on the things that can be done and to keep our kids safer. And that includes, as I suggested, expanding our commitment to school resource officers. My opponent appointed a commission that recommended we ought to have fewer school resource officers. I think we ought to do more. It's the reason I am endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police, a group that endorsed her last time. They understand that the safety of our kids and our future lies in voting Republican.
All right, our next question will come from Jennifer Latsky with Kansas Farmer Magazine, and this will be addressed first to Governor Kelly.
Governor Kelly, in the August Governor's Summit on Agriculture, we brought the state's food and ag sectors together. And one theme across all of those sectors was that we need a workforce with technological skills for agriculture of today and tomorrow, as well as our manufacturing. So what do you propose the state of Kansas should do in partnership with our universities and our technical schools to encourage young Kansans to consider food and ag as a career path and train for the jobs of the future?
Well, I just was at the inaugural of our new president of Kansas State University, who has an incredible array of ideas to address exactly those issues. In fact, the legislature, and I signed it, just committed $25 million to K-State. Dr. Linton is committed to raising another $75 million so that they can create an innovation campus directly related and specifically targeting ag issues. And that will mean investment in technology, education, and research so that we can help our farmers and ranchers continue to do what they do it in a sustainable manner using state-of-the-art technology and equipment. So I am very optimistic that given our new leadership at K-State, that we will take what's already been good partnerships and we will develop those even further. You know, and we need to remember that MBAF is coming on lines early in 2023. That's going to make a huge difference in the amount of research that will be going on, particularly in animal plant sciences. We just signed a deal with Scorpion Biologics, which will be a $600 million investment in Manhattan to look at other ways that we can protect our animal population. So lots and lots going on, and I am committed to continuing to work with our ag community and our research community to move those things even more forward.
General Schmidt. General Schmidt, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, career and technical education is critically important to the future of our kids who want to stay and come to this state, and it is critically important to the future of our employers. I am solidly committed to it, have been for my entire career. One of the great leaps forward that we made was about 10 years ago under Republican leadership with Senate Bill 155 to do a better job of coordinating career and technical education. We need to do more of that with our community college and our technical schools and our high schools and even our middle schools, as well as our employers. But here's the truth. If you want to have more kids, more young people, more people able to work in this state, and everywhere I go, not just in the ag sector, I hear we can't find people to fill jobs, then one of the things you have to do is grow the state, and you have to not disincentivize, there's a long word for you, people to work. The fact of the matter is, after Governor Kelly's lockdowns, there are fewer people working in this state today than there were the day she took office. And because of the enormous amount of money spent by the Biden administration and this socialist agenda from Washington that subsidized a lack of work, there are people sitting on the sidelines who otherwise would not be. Kansas Republicans stepped up and said, you know what, there ought to be work requirements for public assistance in this state. Governor Kelly vetoed that measure. Thankfully, they overrode.
Governor Kelly, you have 45 seconds for a rebuttal.
Thank you. You know, whenever Derek uses that there are fewer people working today, he's using numbers that don't include all of our farm labor, all of our farmers and ranchers. They're not included in that number. All of our sole proprietors, our entrepreneurs, they're not included in that. All the people who work in the nonprofit sector are not included in those numbers. When you include those people who are workers in the total, we actually have 30,000 more people working now than we did prior to the pandemic. And when he talks about us shutting down small businesses and, you know, destroying them, we have 7% more small businesses operating in Kansas today than we did before the pandemic.
You are listening to the Kansas gubernatorial debate here at the Kansas State Fair at People's Bank and Trust Arena. Let's go to our next media panel member, Nick Gosnell with Eagle Radio and Hutch Post in Hutchinson. And his question will be directed to General Schmidt first.
Private Schmidt. No. Attorney General Schmidt, let me ask you first. Hutchinson Correctional Facility is one of the oldest prisons in Kansas, and being sure that enough people are working there is one of the challenges for the state's economy, working in the state's prisons and working in the public sector. How do you make sure they get paid what they need to be able to keep things secure, not only here in Hutchinson, but at the state's other correctional facilities?
Nick, one of the great challenges in this economy right now, including in the prison workforce, but not limited to the workforce, is a lack of people willing to do the jobs. When the governor suggests that everything is just fine and there are plenty more jobs and people working, I would suggest perhaps she ought to go visit with actual Kansans who are trying to hire people and can't find people to fill those jobs. Now, it is absolutely true. That is absolutely true that because of Joe Biden's big government inflation that has driven prices through the roof, and Kansans know it. They know that it costs more to live a daily life today than it did 2 years ago. It is true that wages have had to go up. But here's the rest of the truth. Even though wages have gone up in many areas, the cost of living has gone up more. Kansas working families have fallen behind, and the only long-term solution is we must be on the side of policies that will drive down the rate of inflation so that working Kansas families can afford to live their daily lives, including correctional workers. The fact of the matter is, as I've told you before today, I am willing to stand up to those big government socialist policies out of Washington. I have done it, I will do it again, and my opponent wants to pretend they do not exist and just side with Biden.
Governor Kelly, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. You know, Nick, actually, our vacancy rate at Hutchinson is one of our lowest rates. We have the most success in finding workers who are going into Hutch, and I think that's partly because of the culture at Hutch and the very innovative things that we're doing on workforce development and training on the Hutchinson campus, and we're working to expand those programs to our other correctional facilities so that we really change our correctional facility from being just punitive to really being workforce training centers. We know we have workforce shortages here, and that's by putting training centers and college classes into our correctional facilities, we really are providing another source of workforce for our businesses. And we have worked on salaries and whatnot too. But you know, when I hear Derek talk about inflation and doing something about it, you know, I proposed and eliminated the state sales tax on food. That helps people. All right? Now, the legislature delayed implementation and extended it. I will put a bill on their desk in January to implement the sales tax elimination immediately.
General Schmidt, Attorney General Schmidt, you have 45 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, let's talk about this grocery sales tax for a minute. My opponent wants to claim it as if she was somehow the savior of Kansas taxpayers. I ask you this. when you go home, pull out the last receipt that you had from the grocery store and see what your sales tax looks like. It is the same as it was the day she took office. Now, the governor loves to talk about how, well, those darn Republicans, they delayed everything. Shucks. Maybe if she'd actually worked with Republican leaders, that wouldn't have happened. But don't forget this. Don't forget this. The sales tax on food would be half what it is right now, and it would be zero in January if she just wouldn't have vetoed the bill when they put it on her desk 3 years ago.
All right. The next question comes from Alex Flippin with KWCH-TV, and it will be first addressed to Governor Kelly.
Governor Kelly, this question I've been asked to ask from the American Cancer Society. They want to know about expanding CanCare, but more importantly, they want to know how from the governor's office you can improve the affordability of health care for Kansans.
Well, the fact that we have not expanded Medicaid in Kansas when we've had about 7 or 8 years to do it is beyond belief. You know, we have left $6 billion back in Washington, D.C. that should have come here to help us with our people, expand our job base, and expand our economy. We left it back there. We need to bring it here. I have proposed to the legislature 4 different times a different proposal for Medicaid expansion. Each time they rejected it, even though I addressed the concerns that they had, and Derek Schmidt supported their efforts to object. Will not support Medicaid expansion. So I will again put my 5th proposal for Medicaid expansion on their desks early January. Hope that the ideological opposition will go away. I will never be on the ballot again, so they can't use me as their excuse. We need to get this done for the people of Kansas. It is a win for them. We have got to do this. We are losing. We are hurting our rural hospitals. We're hurting our urban hospitals. We are bleeding healthcare workers to other states, all of which around us have expanded Medicaid, and they're stealing our healthcare workers because they can get reimbursed for their services. We need to get this done. There's no excuse.
Attorney General Schmidt. Attorney General Schmidt, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, the governor is 0-4 on her proposals for Medicaid expansion. Maybe because she has been an ineffective leader who can't get things done with the legislature. Or maybe because there are many of our elected representatives in the legislature who have serious substantive policy concerns with the public policy that came from the Obama-Biden administration and is designed to pay for the health care for able-bodied adults without dependents, people who could be working but in these cases are not. Maybe the legislature has serious concerns because they just have reservations about a government-run healthcare system expansion. Maybe the legislature is looking at the last big government program that this administration ran, our unemployment benefit system, and saying it was such a debacle they can't be trusted with expanded CanCare. $450 million lost at least, according to the audit just this year. So here's the bottom line. I do not believe the legislature representing the people of Kansas is going to go down this path anytime soon. I am not going to urge them to because I think they have legitimate concerns. I think there are other ways we can help small and rural providers, like looking at reimbursement rates that would help not only hospitals, but also nursing homes, who the governor's office doesn't look at.
Governor Kelly. Governor Kelly. Governor Kelly, you have 45 seconds for rebuttal.
Well, I don't think an ineffective leader gets signed 286 bipartisan bills. I don't think an ineffective leader wins trophy after trophy for economic development. Recognized. I don't think an ineffective leader brings in the largest ever capital investment, $4 billion, 4,000 jobs, with Panasonic coming to DeSoto. Yeah, I've got to ask you, Derek, do you really think we were better off under Sam Brownback than we are now?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Kansas gubernatorial debate on the Kansas radio networks, and of course the flagship station 580 WIBW in Topeka and 104.9 FM. Before we go to the next question, of course, tomorrow we celebrate 9/11, and it has been unbelievably 21 years since the events that changed many of our worlds. Would those who are currently serving in the military or who previously served in the military, would they please stand? Would you show your appreciation to those who have served for our country? And we do appreciate your service. Thank you very much. All right, let's get back into it. Our next question comes from Jennifer Latsky with Kansas Farmer Magazine, and it will be addressed first to Attorney General Schmidt.
Attorney General Schmidt, Kansas was one of the 8 states that petitioned the EPA to have a permanent waiver for E15. And considering Kansas's role as an agricultural state, what do you see as our potential future in the renewable energy or climate smart agriculture or agribusiness economy, whatever it looks like in the future? Do you still support the E15 waiver? And where do we see Kansas in 10, 15 years in our renewables energy sector?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity in Kansas for energy production to support many of our folks around the state. I think an all of the above energy policy is the right policy for Kansas. I think that includes biofuels like E15. I specifically supported that waiver. The governor actually supported it, and then she flip-flopped and took her name off of it. I don't know what changed that she, had a different idea, but you might want to take a look at that. In any event, I'm a strong supporter of our ethanol and biofuels industry. I'm a strong supporter of our oil and gas industry. I'm a strong supporter of the all of the above approach to Kansas energy. And let me say this, Kansans are hurting right now in large part because of the extraordinary inflation and rising costs in the energy sector. The price of fuel is far up, even as it's trickled back down, far up from it was the day the Biden administration took office. The price of electricity is up in this state. Overregulation from the Joe Biden administration is hurting Kansans' pocketbooks. I've stood up and fought back on the Keystone Pipeline. I've stood up and fought back on behalf of Kansas Ethanol. I've stood up and fought back against their efforts to implement the Green New Deal. And from the governor's office, we've had no help.
Governor Kelly, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just clear up on the E15. I did sign on, and then I did take my name off because it was a problem that we were creating a problem because Missouri had not signed on. And actually, if we had remained on, gas prices would have gone up. So I decided to pull off. And we'll try to come up with a different solution. So I have been a major advocate for also in all of the above. I do think it's important that we know we need energy production. We know we need a lot of it, and we need as much of it done domestically as we possibly can so that we're not dependent upon foreign energy sources. We see with Ukraine what a huge problem that is. So I will always be supportive of an all of the above approach to this. But investing heavily in the resources that going forward that our businesses want. You know, when I'm talking with CEOs and we're talking about companies coming in, you know, energy costs are of extreme importance to them. And what they want is the ability to do clean energy, renewable energy, because it keeps their costs down. So we will continue to invest in renewable energy very significantly because that's where we're going, that's what we need. You know, also remember that we got Panasonic, who's yeah. That's good. We are really taking ourselves into the future, and we're going to take the rest of the country with us.
Attorney General Schmidt, you have 45 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, all of the above is the right public policy, but this comment over here is right on. We must not adopt government policies that try to turn Kansas into California. We must make sure that markets drive us into a renewable future so that we can actually drive ourselves with gas-fired cars. I am a tremendous believer in the role of biofuels in our economy. I think the whole issue of Missouri, you know, had I been governor, I would have called the governor of Missouri and say, can we persuade you to join us to help ethanol rather than retreating and just backing down? And by the way, the governor of Missouri is supporting me in this race. So he'd take my call. And I am proud to be endorsed by the Kansas Farm Bureau, one of the strongest advocates for renewable fuels in this state.
All right, let's go to the next question. It will come from Nick Gosnell with Hutch Post and Eagle Radio in Hutchinson, and it will be addressed first to Governor Kelly.
Governor Kelly, let's talk about the people that are actually on the ballot. Sam Brownback is not on the other side of you, and Joe Biden is not on the other side of Derek. So let's start there. But what I'm going to talk about is there are 6 people on the ballot who aren't on this dais. They're going to be on the ballot in November. They're the Kansas Supreme Court justices. The Kansas public voted, some would say overwhelmingly, to keep the decision about abortion in the hands of those justices. Rather than in the hands of the Kansas legislature. Is it your intent to support the retention of those justices?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I have no doubt that I stand with the overwhelming majority of Kansans on the issue of women's right to privacy in making her own medical decisions. You know, I think 60% of Kansans said they don't want that government overreach into people's personal lives. And I can tell you something else. I have been consistent on my position on this issue since I entered the state Senate 18 years ago. And I will stay consistent no matter what happens.
Attorney General Schmidt, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, in my current role, I have the privilege of representing the state of Kansas in front of the Kansas Supreme Court with some frequency. And so I intend to walk into the voting booth and, like any citizen, cast my vote on retention. And I will tell you, I plan to vote to retain some and not to retain others, and that's all I need to say on that subject. Every Kansan can make their decision. With respect to the abortion issue, let me say this. I am pro-life. I supported the constitutional amendment. Kansas voters have decided, and in our system, their decision has to be respected. Which does not mean that the discussion has ended. It will continue as it was before. Let me tell you, though, what was not on the ballot in August. What was not on the ballot in August was Governor Kelly's position. Governor Kelly's position has been consistent, but it is consistently that she supports no restrictions, that she would favor access to abortion up until the moment of birth for any purpose paid for with public money from taxpayers. That is an extreme position, and it is not the position shared by most Kansans.
Governor Kelly, you have 45 seconds for a rebuttal.
Yeah, I stand here with the majority of Kansans who believe that politicians should not be making decisions about women's health care. You know, women make up at least 50% of our population, maybe more. They are entitled to the same rights as the other 50%. And I wouldn't want to live in a state that didn't protect the rights of all Kansans.
The next question will come from Alex Flippin with KWCH-TV in Wichita, and it will be first addressed to Attorney General Schmidt.
Attorney General Schmidt, there is a devastating labor shortage in the ag industry in Kansas. So in terms of immigration, how do you make this a little easier for employers to fill those positions?
Yeah. Alex, I agree with the premise of your question, and I am a strong supporter of legal immigration into the United States. I think Congress, members of both parties over time, have failed to fix our broken immigration system, and I think the answer to your question is that there has to be a functioning Congress that has the ability to fix the immigration laws so we let in the people we need in and keep out the people we need to keep out. Part of that, and part of the reason for the dysfunction on this issue in Washington is the decision by the current administration to retreat from security of our southern border. You must secure the border of the country before you can make a rational decision on who may come in and who may go out. The Biden administration has retreated from border security. I've been there. I've seen it. I've challenged them on some of their efforts to pull back on fundamental border security issues. We've succeeded in blocking some, we've not succeeded in blocking others. We haven't had help from the governor's office on any of our efforts on that. In fact, there were some border state governors in Texas and Arizona who asked Governor Kelly and lots of other governors, Republicans and Democrats, to send them help because they're being overrun. And not only did Governor Kelly say no, she also called it a political stunt. I don't think it's a political stunt. I think it is fundamental to the future of this state and the security of this country.
Governor Kelly, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Okay. Well, I would agree that we do need secure borders. I think that is important. But I also need to let Derek know that we actually did send guardsmen to the border. We sent 250 of our National Guards folks to the border, and I believe they returned home just a couple of months ago. What I was not willing to do was to use the military, use our National Guard as political props. I will not do that. You know, and I do believe that the power to address the immigration issue rests in Washington, D.C. The lack of comprehensive reforms has hit so many sectors and contributes to our workforce issues, but it's particularly poignant in our agricultural world. What I have actually done is bring together a coalition of stakeholders and assigned my Secretary of Agriculture, Mike Beam, to work with them to build a coalition of these folks, not just in Kansas, but nationwide, to appeal to Congress to finally, once and for all, do something. Do comprehensive immigration reform, or at least take it piecemeal so that we can deal specifically with issues in the various sectors.
Attorney General Schmidt, you have 45 seconds for rebuttal.
Well, about those 250 Kansas Guardsmen who went to the border, I am genuinely grateful for their service. They went to the border after being called up by the President of the United States, not by the governor of the state of Kansas. You know, we got to do better on keeping clear what the feds do and what the states do, and my opponent really likes to muck that up a whole lot. She's just standing with Joe Biden on a whole lot of stuff. Look, here's the truth of the matter. Border security is critical for so many reasons, including creating an environment that can fix our broken immigration system, the point of the question in the first place. As Attorney General, I work with law enforcement every day, and you don't take a very long conversation with a cop on the street before they're talking about fentanyl flooding over our border into Kansas, killing people here, methamphetamine flooding over the border into Kansas, killing people here. I am endorsed in this race by the Fraternal Order of Police that was with my opponent last time. I am also endorsed in this race by the Kansas State Troopers Association, who worked for my opponent because they understand we need stronger leadership on these issues.
All right, let's get to what probably will be our final question of the day, and that will come from Jennifer Latsky with Kansas Farmer Magazine, and it will be addressed first to Governor Kelly.
Governor Kelly, the average age of the American farmer continues to be older. I am a late-term Gen X, as it were, and people my father's generation and above are starting to figure out how are they going to transition the farm. Now, what would you do in the next administration to help the transitioning farmers with taxes and regulatory burdens that would make it so it's possible to hand down a family farm to the next generation of the family?
Well, I think it's absolutely imperative that we do work on a number of policies that ensure that our families can hand their farms down to the next generation. I think we also have to do a number of things to ensure that the next generation wants to have the farm and wants to stay there and wants to work there. So I think that's why I'm looking forward to what comes out of K-State and the innovation that they're working on, so that our younger generation is motivated to stay here in the state of Kansas and to continue to operate our farms. You know, I know that there's been a lot of concern about big corporate farming taking over and destroying our family farms. We've done a number of things in our administration to work closely with our smaller family farmers to ensure that they've got the support and the resources that they need. You know, we particularly work with them. We worked with them very closely during the pandemic to ensure that they had the resources they needed to get through, that they could perhaps change their business model in a way that made it more viable for them to continue to operate. So we will continue to look through our Office of Rural Prosperity and our Department of Agriculture, working with Kansas State University to make the environment in our agricultural community the best that it can be. I think it's also important that we work with our Department of Commerce to ensure that we have the housing and the child care and all of the access to health care that our rural communities need to incent these young people to stay there and work on those farms.
Attorney General Schmidt, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, this is a subset of what is perhaps one of the most important issues facing Kansas, which is the continued outmigration of our young people. Over the last 20 years, with both Republicans and Democrats in different leadership positions, Kansas has seen net outmigration of about 185,000 people. 185,000 more people who started here and went somewhere else than who started somewhere else and came here. And that is a far higher number than for any of our surrounding or neighborhood states. So you're absolutely right. It is a critical issue and a critical problem. Our overall population is flat. It actually shrunk, the state population did, in 2021. So it is a serious issue, and the farm issue is a subset of that demographic within it. So in terms of the farm issue, here are a couple of thoughts. Number one, when I served in the Kansas Senate, I helped lead the effort to repeal the Kansas estate tax and the Kansas inheritance tax so that our state didn't disincentivize the handing of farms or businesses from one generation to another. And number two, we have put on the table in this election campaign a proposal we're calling Retire Tax-Free. There are 13 states in this union that do not tax dedicated retirement income, they do not tax Social Security benefits, they do not tax pension benefits. I think we ought to become the 14th state to go down that road. And here's why I make that point in the context of this question. When Grandpa and Grandma choose to retire and stay in Kansas, it makes it much more likely that son and daughter and grandchildren will be more likely to stay home, stay here, and stay on the farm.
Governor Kelly, you have 45 seconds for a rebuttal.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we continue to do what we're doing with job growth and business investment in our state. You know, if we don't have the jobs that our young people want, they're going to go elsewhere. So it's imperative that we get those in place. We also have to deal with the other things that our young people will need. They need the housing, they need the child care, they need those kinds of supports in order to be able to make Kansas home. So we will do that. But if we want, we cannot talk about workforce and growing it without really addressing the immigration reform issue. You know, there's no way that we can grow ourselves out of this without having a comprehensive immigration reform program in place.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a little audible on the closing statements. We had agreed that it was going to be 2 minutes, but due to time constraints, I'm going to cut that down to 90 seconds each that way. And please, ladies and gentlemen, let's be fair to both candidates to get their closing statements out. And we want to do that first. And so the first to get their closing statement will be Attorney General Derek Schmidt.
I began this debate by sharing my Kansas story, how past generations of my family chose to make Kansas home. Kansans deserve a governor who is on an unwavering mission to enable new generations to write their own Kansas stories. As your governor, I will fight every day to help Kansas families to succeed as they define their own success. We'll fight for a state where daily life is more affordable, where hard work is rewarded, where working families can get ahead, where retirees choose to stay, where opportunity abounds, and where family budgets grow faster than the state budget. We'll fight for the best education opportunity for every child and for the rights of parents to direct their child's upbringing. We'll fight to preserve the freedoms and liberties of the people and for our way of life. And when the big government socialism of those in Washington, whether it is Joe Biden who said that half of our people are a threat to our country, or whether it was Barack Obama who talked about bitterly clinging to guns and religion, when they intrude upon our way of life, we will stand up and fight back. And what we will not do is welcome their recession and say, us too, bring it on, bring it on. My friends, it is time for us to stand up for Kansas. I'm a Bob Dole Republican. I was proud to have his endorsement in this race. I have stood up, and I will. My opponent is a Joe Biden Democrat who has not and will not stand up for this state. That is our mission. This vote is about the future. I ask for your vote for governor. It is time for a change. Kansas can do better, and on our watch, it will.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's give the final word on the closing statement to Governor Kelly.
So I want to thank everybody again for making this debate happen. It's been a real treat. You know, Kansans face a really important choice this November. Either we can stay on track with an economy that's growing, budgets that are balanced, law enforcement and public schools fully funded, taxes that are lower, or we can turn back the clock and return to the same disastrous policies that broke our budgets and our schools. You know, now my opponent would like you to believe that I am someone that I am not. I think you know me. I think you know I am pretty middle of the road, that I bring people together. Maybe I'm not flashy, but I am effective. We put party aside, we put politics aside, and instead we just try to do what's right for Kansas. It's that simple. I am proud that we have brought over $13.7 billion of new business investment to Kansas, including the largest economic development project in the history of the state, Panasonic. We have created and retained 50,000 jobs. We cut $1 billion in taxes, including eliminating the food tax, all while balancing the budget, paying down debt, making a record investment in our rainy day fund of $1 billion, and we have, on top of that, a 1.2 budget surplus. And now that we've steadied the ship, we are really well positioned for more big things. We see it with new businesses and jobs coming to our state, our main streets and our rural communities thriving. Our best days are ahead of us. And I know that by working together, we will make Kansas the best state for everything, for living, for working, for raising your family. I ask you for your vote again this November.
Ladies and gentlemen, that will wrap it up here from the People's Bank and Trust Arena in Hutchinson. Our thanks to our sponsors, Also, our special thanks to Kansas State Fair General Manager Brian Scholes and Connie Schmidt for all their help. For our media panel, Nick Gosnell, Jennifer Lasky, and Alex Flippin. For our timekeeper, Slade Wiley, I'm Greg Akagi. Thank you for joining us, and exercise your right to vote on November 8th.
In our increasingly electrified society, that's where a resilient grid matters most. ITC Great Plains is ensuring the greater grid can meet our energy needs now and long into the future. Learn more at itc-holdings.com.